Trump won the presidency again. Now what? It's not 2016 anymore, but I personally believe the more things change, the more they stay the same. Trump will get in, people will be excited, Antifa will probably make some semblance of a return, even if not as prolifically as it was before. Things will go on as usual. The reason Trump was elected twice, even if not consecutively, was because of what his predecessor Obama had as his slogan, change we can believe in. People are tired of the same corruption. They want what they believe will be honesty and fairness, and I'll admit Trump is the closest thing to those we can get today. One thing I've been annoyed about ever since about 2017, when the luster wore off Trump's first presidency, was the amount of doomsaying about the guy. It was especially the millennial generation, whose later members were just coming of age. These people saw some of the moves he made and some of the politicians he was surrounding himself with, and very quickly started bad-mouthing and blackpilling. To believe Trump's going to get into office and fix everything just shows how immature and impatient someone is. It took us decades to get to the point we were at in 2016, and it's not going to get better in 4 or even 8 years. We can definitely improve, but it won't be fixed completely. One priest in a room full of murderers is not going to make the room safe for you to be in, and that's what Trump could be compared to. At the end of the day, he needs people in his cabinet, and as good of a job as you think you'd do sitting at home in Boise, Idaho, he's going to go with someone he's at least slightly aware of and isn't going to cause him too much of a headache. Donald Trump is just a man, and you cannot expect perfection out of him regardless of how big he speaks about himself and how much you want to believe it's true. The thing to remember about Trump is that he's a boomer. He comes from the group of people who put us in this predicament in the first place. Boomers, Gen X, and millennials were never going to make positive political change. Boomers made the world and raised their kids to be just like them, despite what Gen X and millennials want to hear. They were never going to do anything except make it worse. The nihilistic solipsism is an inoperable cancer. As a millennial myself, it sucks to come to terms with. Late Gen Z and early Gen Alpha will be the first generation in 100 years with any real promise. Gen Z and A are the first ones in a long time to have broken out of some of the mental restraints the prior generations were always operating in. I remember almost 10 years ago when someone was called one of the common buzzwords you get called for not wanting to be killed, stolen from, or persecuted, the entire conversation would stop and morph into a struggle session. It would always end with the victim of the name-calling trying and failing to explain how they aren't really a Nazi, and in fact, the Democrats are the real racists. Gen Z and A just tell people to shut up and then they go about their business as usual. Donald is a step in the right direction, but any expectation of him being ultra-based and red-pilled was just a delusion by people who don't have the patience or mental fortitude to understand how cycles work. You aren't working with choices and decisions, you're working with neuroses. The political fixations of most people come down to whatever propaganda they pathologized and how it will affect them socially. The boomers, all the way down to the millennials, had certain illnesses forced on them that became a framework for how they view the world and what is acceptable. One of these frameworks is not wanting to seem brash or careless to the plight of people who have been deemed to have a harder time. On the surface, this is a virtue, but the way it typically plays out is the demonizing of anyone who has it better and the inability to have a serious conversation about any topic for fear of offending those underprivileged people. Because of this, all conversation becomes polluted. Instead of focusing on the issue at hand, the debate becomes about the victim status of someone involved. The best example being that of race relations in the country. Many of the issues of our time won't be resolved by us because of said neuroses, but the younger generations will have a chance because theirs will be different. When it comes to things like race relations, they're more direct and they speak with more finality. They'll have their own issues with their own topics, though. So what can be done right now? It's not fun feeling powerless, but for the most part we are. For one thing, we can have positive effects on the younger generations, being upstanding people and setting an example for how they should conduct themselves in their daily lives. Strong masculine role models are in short supply nowadays. We can also try our best to insulate ourselves from the diseased world. Getting all up in a tizzy about it like a little girl isn't going to help, though. Twitter is still a cesspool, even if the South African owns it. You're still falling to rage-bait propaganda watching professional activists on both sides say things for clout. Now is the time to take what we can get and make the best of it. I, for one, just hope the economy gets better.